Excuse me, ladies and gentlemen. Services are going to start in a few moments. I'm going to ask if everyone could kindly find a seat. If you do not have seating here, there is availability in the upper level. Thank you kindly.
Please be seated. It's such a beautiful day outside. Such a dark day inside. dark and terrifying. I think we're all trying to absorb the shocking, terrible news of Mike's sudden death. Does not make any sense. It's unfair, incomprehensible. And we're here to support, comfort, hold Mike's family, Carol, Nate, Eve, and Joey, and Jerry, and Sharon, his siblings. תפילה למשה איש האלוהים, אדוני מעון אתה היית לנו בדור ודור, בטרם הרים יולדו ותחולל ארץ ותבל, ומעולם עד עולם התהל. תשב אנוש עד דקה ותאמר שובו בני אדם, כי 1000 שנים בעיניך כיום אתמול כי יעבור, והשמורה בלילה. זרמתם שינה יהיו, בבוקר כחציר יחלוף, בבוקר יציץ וחלף, לערב ימולל ויבש. כי חלינו באפיך ובחמתך נבהלנו, שת עוונותינו לנגדך, עלומנו למור פניך. כי כל ימינו פנו בעברתך, כילינו שנינו כמו הגה. ימי שנותינו בהם 70 שנה, ועם גבורות 80 שנה, ורוחבם עמל ואבן. כי גז חיש ונעופה, מי יודע עוז אפיך וקהילתך עברתך. למנות ימינו כן הודע, ונביא ולבב חוכמה. שובה אדוני עד מתי ונחם על עבדיך. סבנו בבוקר חסדיך, ונרננה ונשמחה בכל ימינו. שמחנו כמות עיניתנו, שנות ראינו רעה. יראה על עבדיך פועליך ודרך על ביניהם, ויהי נועם אדוני אלוהינו עלינו, ומעשה ידינו כוננה עלינו, ומעשה ידינו כוננהו. A prayer of Moses, the man of God. Adonai, you have been a refuge in every generation. Before mountains were born, before you shaped earth and land, from the very beginning to the end of time, you are God. You return humans to dust, saying, return, children of Adam. In your sight, 1,000 years are but a yesterday that has passed, a watch in the night. People's lives flow by as in dreams. Fresh grass at daybreak, newly sprouted, dried up and withered in the night. We are consumed by your anger, terrified by your fury. You set our sins before you, our secrets before the light of your face. For all our days face your wrath, our years end like a sigh. 70 years are spent thus, or if we're given strength, 80. Most of them filled with toil and fatigue. The years rush by quickly and we disappear. Who can realize the strength of your anger? The fear of you matches your wrath. Teach us to make our days count, and so acquire a heart that is wise. Turn to us, Adonai, how long the wait. Comfort your servants. At daybreak, satisfy us with your love and kindness, that we may sing with joy all of our days. Grant us days of happiness equal to those we suffered, the years we saw so much wrong. May your servants see your deeds, and may your glory be upon their children. May the peace of Adonai, our God, be with us, that the work of our hands last beyond us, and may the work of our hands be lasting.
The thing about Mike is that even though he was so incredibly accomplished and brilliant, he was also so beautifully humble and genuinely interested in the experiences and achievements of other people with no need to pull focus to himself. I loved him very much, and I hope that this psalm conveys a little bit of who he was. Adonai mi yagur bo'ahalecha mi yishkan bahar kodshecha holech tamin ufol tzedek v'dover emet bilvavo lo ragal al leshono lo asa l're'ehu ra'ah v'cherpa lo nasa al krovo nivze be'enav nimas ve'et yireh Adonai yechabed nishba lahara v'lo yamir kaspo lo natan b'neshech v'shoched lo naki lo lakach ose'ele lo yimot leolam. Adonai, who may abide in your house, who may dwell in your holy mountain? Those who are upright, who do justly, who speak truth within their hearts, who do not slander others or wrong them or bring shame upon them, who scorn the lawless but honor those who revere God, who give their word and come what may do not retract, who do not exploit others, who do not take bribes. Those who live in this way shall never be shaken.
מזמור לדוד, אדוני רואי לא אחסר, בינות דשא ירביצני, על מי מנוחות ינעלני. נפשי ישובב, נפשי ישובב, ינחני ומעגל צדק למען שמו. גם כי אלך בגט צל מוות, לא אירא רע, כי אתה עמדי. שבטך ומשענתך, שבטך ומשענתך, המה ינחמוני. תערוך לפני שולחן, תערוך לפני שולחן, תערוך לפני שולחן, נגד צורריי. דשנת ושמן ראשי, דשנת ושמן ראשי, דשנת ושמן ראשי, כוסי רוויה. אך טוב וחסד ירדפוני, ירדפוני כל ימי חיי, ושבתי בבית אדוני, ושבתי בבית אדוני לאורך ימים.
The 23rd Psalm, a Psalm of David. Adonai is my shepherd, I shall not want. God lays me down in green pastures, leads me to still waters, renews my life, guides me in right paths, for that is God's way. Though I walk through a valley as dark as death, I fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You spread a table before me in full view of my foes. You anoint my head with oil, my cup overflowing. Only goodness and steadfast love shall pursue me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of Adonai forever.
I want to share the words of Rabbi Ron Isaacs, who was Mike's rabbi growing up. My heart goes out to all of Michael Gertzman's family, friends, and relatives. I am saddened and numbed by his untimely loss. I wanted to share some of my memories of Michael and thank the family for the opportunity. I began my rabbinic career at Temple Shalom in Bridgewater in 1975. Michael was one of my first students. He was in my very first bar bat mitzvah class and attended our Hebrew high school. His brilliant mind was on display in the 10th grade confirmation class. I knew he was destined for great things in life. Always attentive, highly articulate, polite, fair-minded, and inquisitive, he was a rabbi's delight as a student. His sister Sharon and brother Jerry were also among my many students, and they too were a teacher's joy. Michael's amazing parents, Gloria and Arthur, Aleichem Shalom, served as presidents of my synagogue, Temple Shalom in Bridgewater. They gave an incredible amount of time and counsel in leading the temple during its period of greatest growth. I even had the privilege of officiating at weddings and gained a rabbinic colleague when I performed the ceremony of Michael and Carol. Michael's home as a child was filled with love of family, mitzvot, and Jewish values. So too was his home in his adult life. His clients were fortunate to have such a brilliant lawyer working on their behalf. I hope that all who knew and love Michael Gertzman will continue to live lives that will make a difference for others, for in that way they will give him his eternity. Today we're going to hear words of praise and glory to Mike for his life of 60 years, half of the life of Moshe, but full in those 60 years, first from his younger brother Jerry, then from his childhood friend Jeff Chang, then from his colleague Brad Karp, and then his children, starting from youngest to oldest, Joey, Eve, and then Nate.
I knew my brother had touched a lot of people. This is overwhelming. Thank you all for coming here to honor my brother. Super smart, hardworking, diligent, principled, honest, generous, nurturing, caring, fun, courageous, adventurous, and humble. Truly a mensch. These are all adjectives which describe my brother Mike. I've always been proud of Mike. He was always so smart, did so well in school. He had a really close-knit group of friends with whom he maintained contact and closeness throughout his life, and it was enviable. He packed a lot into those 60 years. Way too few years. But he built an impressive career. He traveled all over the world. He raised 3 impressive children and enjoyed a marriage to a true partner and friend. He was a great father, and I also envied his relationship with Carol. He, like our own father, made his children a priority. He loved going to baseball games to watch Nate and Joey play, as well as theater productions to see Evie. It was wonderful to see Mike and Carol support each other and encourage each other in their successes. Mike and I were close, as two boys would naturally be, sharing a room growing up for 16 years until he moved out for college. We had a hefty bank of emotional capital, so that even when there would be long stretches between seeing each other, we never missed a beat. It was great having somebody who knew me that well my entire life. Mike was generous of heart, mind, and spirit. He would always be there when it was important. I had back surgery in 2002, and lying in my hospital bed the night before surgery, Mike showed up from New York to visit me. I always knew how hard he worked, how many hours he dedicated to his career, but there he was in Western New Jersey in my hospital room, and I didn't ask him to come. He was just there. He was there for me during hard times and celebrated with me during good times. His wisdom and kindness and love helped me more than he probably knew. He was a great partner for our sister Sharon and I when we lost our dad and ultimately had to take care of our mom. And Mike was gutsy and courageous too. Not in an adrenaline junkie sort of way, but he made choices that others may have found too risky. Like when he took a hiatus from his firm on his way to becoming partner to work as an assistant U.S. attorney for a few years. Of course it paid off because he returned to Paul Weiss and had an exemplary career, but it was an example of Mike's willingness to take a calculated risk, a deliberate risk, never careless. Our parents, or more accurately, one of our parents, was a bit controlling. So in college, when Mike wanted to travel or do things that were not consistent with my parents' view of how things should go, or when something should be done, they would try to exert control through restriction of the purse strings. Mike would have none of that. He told them that he would take care of his own expenses, and while they did cover tuition, he took it upon himself to finance other aspects of his lifestyle, all the while maintaining an impressive enough GPA at Wharton and University of Pennsylvania to get into Harvard Law School. Mike held down a side job so he could have money to spend on the things he wanted to do. I thought he was crazy. I was living fine on the gravy train, and I didn't understand why he didn't just play the game. There were times during college or law school that he was a little short of cash, although he never complained about it. And I never told him this, and I'm fairly sure he never knew, but there were several times when we were home in our old bedroom on college breaks when I would slip a 20 or two into his wallet. But don't be too heartened at my generosity. Those 20s came off the gravy train. Mike was taken from us way too soon. He was a young man at the top of his game, enjoying his life and his family and looking forward to things. His was a full life, but far too short. I wish we could have had more time together to do things together and spend time and enjoy our families, just as we did the night before he died, when Carol and Mike hosted 28 of us at their home for one of the nicest seders I remember. The new normal, life without my brother, will be very difficult to get used to. I love you, Mike, and I will miss you always. Fair winds and following seas. Carol, Nate, Eve, Joey, along with Sharon and Dave, Sandy and Mike, Nancy, Randy and I, along with the rest of your legacy, we have the helm.
Jeff Chang.
Hi, I'm Jeff, childhood friend of Michael's growing up in New Jersey. First of all, I just want to express my deepest condolences to Carol, Nate, Eve, Joey, and Sharon and Jerry and your families. We are all so sorry for your loss. It was too soon. Michael is a great husband, a great father, a great brother, and a great friend. Michael and I were the closest of friends starting in high school, into college and grad school, and since then as well. We shared a lot in those early days when we were figuring out who we were and what we wanted to be. Talking about our plans and hopes and dreams. Talking about girls and our crushes and hopes to get into our dream schools. And in high school, we were a part of a group. In fact, it was known as the group, many of whom are here today, actually. I have so many fond memories of those times growing up and hanging out together. Late night meals at Denny's, our epic canoe trips down the Delaware River, our alternative prom when we had our own separate prom night for the group. And we stayed together through the college days, hanging out during summer and winter break. I remember feeling happy for Michael when he got into Harvard Law, and remembering his excitement having met Carol. And delighted for him building a career at the assistant AG's office and at his law firm. And celebrating the milestones together, weddings, births, bar mitzvahs. I thought I'd share a few anecdotes about Michael that I believe illuminate something about who he was. Some of you may know that he became an Eagle Scout. And he had an earnestness which led him to be ribbed a bit as he became known as Honest Mike. Just like George Washington, who cut down the family cherry tree, he could not tell a lie. Even if it meant a risk getting his mom mad at him for what really was a tiny infraction. That was Mike. But the truth is, Michael was a deeply ethical and moral person. A person of uncommon decency and in an old-fashioned way honorable. Michael was a hard worker. He always studied the longest and hardest in high school. He was voted our class speaker and delivered a truly memorable valedictorian speech. And I remember the long hours he put into assistant AG office and his career. He was always there for his clients and his firm. To me, this illustrates his work ethic and his willingness to self-sacrifice for his future and his family. A few years ago, the group was able to get together at Paul's Lake House in New Hampshire. A really wonderful house right on Lake Winnipesaukee in a quaint New England village. We had such a great time hiking and sailing and cooking and sampling whiskeys, we decided to make it an annual tradition. When we got together, Michael was always wanting to know how each of us were doing. This was beyond curiosity, but coming from a place of deeply caring. He was always someone you wanted to be with. Michael has supported me with some of my life challenges. When you were with Michael, you knew he always deeply cared about you. That was the loyalty and care he showed his friends. These are some of the ways I'll always remember him. Thank you.
It feels impossible, incomprehensible to stand before you to eulogize Michael Gertzman. Michael was so full of life, the brightest light in our constellation. And Michael had so much more to accomplish, so much to live for. It's not fair, it's not right, it's not just. Michael Gertzman is and was a legend at Paul Weiss, and for all the right reasons. Michael's legacy was extraordinary, and it will be enduring. There was no one kinder, more beloved, smarter, more firm-minded, more deeply respected than Michael. Michael exuded humanity and decency. He was the smartest person in every room, but he never acted like it. He was the kindest and most decent person in our firm, making time for everyone, treating everyone with respect. The outpouring of grief each of us feels right now is a testament to the indelible impact Michael has had on all of us, the number of lives he has touched, and the depth and purity of the connections that he has forged. I've received over 500 emails, texts, and notes of condolence over the past 36 hours. My partners have likewise been inundated. Let me share my remembrances and try to explain the profound impact Michael has had on me and on the broader Paul Weiss community. I've known Michael for 37 years. As you heard, Michael graduated from Harvard Law School in 1988, and he was a Paul Weiss Summer Associate in 1987. I remember meeting Michael very early that summer and taking him to lunch. I was a third-year litigation associate. Sometimes you meet someone and you just know. What struck me then and what has stayed with me for the next 37 years is how kind and thoughtful and decent and caring and humane Michael was. Michael was 24 years old that summer of 1987, but he comported himself as someone much more poised and mature than his age would indicate. Michael worked with me on some complicated projects that summer, and his otherworldly brain power was on full display. Michael was absolutely brilliant and creative, but he also was kind and gentle, and it was those traits that left the deepest impression on me. I kept in touch with Michael after that summer and eagerly awaited for him to return to the firm, which he did in September of 1988. I wanted to work again with Michael, recognizing both that he was tremendously talented and a first-class mensch. I remember wandering into Michael's office early that September, intent on poaching him to work with me. When I walked into Michael's office, he was speaking on the phone with Carol. He ended that conversation, and I remember it like it was yesterday, saying, "I love you, 888. You see, Michael and Carol were married in August 1988. I worked a lot with Michael over many, many decades. Every phone conversation ended with Michael telling Carol that he loved her and repeating 888. I heard this literally hundreds, if not thousands of times. It was a ritual straight from the heart, and like so many rituals, it was a source of great comfort and reminded me that no matter the craziness of the moment, all was right in the world. And Michael's priorities were just as they should be. Michael's love for Carol, and later his love for Nate, Eve, and Joey was beautiful, and it was overwhelming. Michael proudly wore his love of family on his sleeve and displayed it proudly, 24/7, 365 days a year, for decade after decade after decade. Michael was so much more than a colleague to me. He was a dear friend who I loved and respected and counted on for judgment, advice, and leadership. Michael and I worked closely on dozens of matters over the years. We worked across the globe. Typically, Michael would cross the globe, and I would stay in New York. Sorry. I always brought Michael into the toughest, most demanding matters for the firm's most important clients. It's one of the smartest things I ever did. We spent the very beginning of our careers working side by side, working with Arthur Lyman, defending the financier, Michael Milken in the array of criminal, regulatory, and civil matters brought against him. We spent years and years helping what was then our firm's largest client, Citigroup, disentangle itself from catastrophic and existential entanglements. We helped Bank of Tokyo Mitsubishi avoid billions of dollars of exposure. We represented auto executive and international fugitive Carlos Ghosn survive his arrest and pending criminal trial before a Tokyo court. And most recently, we've been helping a major New York hospital deal with a sensitive matter. And we handled dozens and dozens and dozens of matters together in between. But it's not the work that I remember. It's the sense of collaborating with a true friend, someone who reflexively had your back and who was calm in the line of fire and who was unfailingly brilliant and strategic and also kind and thoughtful. My most satisfying memories of Paul Weiss involved working alongside Michael on stressful, impossible matters and brainstorming to try to figure out solutions as best as we possibly could. Ours was a true old school partnership, friends who genuinely and deeply cared about each other, working together in person, often late into the night, problem solving. Michael was my professional and personal security blanket. And I know that Michael played that role for countless partners and clients and friends, so many of whom took the time to be here today. Michael was a rock. He was my rock. He was our rock. He was Carol's rock. He was Nate's, Eve's, and Joey's rock. He gave of himself so selflessly and completely and asked for nothing in return ever. Michael was beloved at Paul Weiss. He was beloved by our partners, our associates, our staff. Michael was beloved, truly beloved, literally by everyone with whom he interacted. But Michael was more than loved. He was universally respected, again, literally, by everyone with whom he interacted. Michael represented the very best and highest ideals of our law firm and of the law. Michael won every election he ever participated in at Paul Weiss. He won them all by acclamation. Michael was chair of our litigation department for 6 years. Michael served on our management committee for multiple terms. Michael served on our compensation committee. Michael was trusted implicitly by our partnership, by every single partner in our partnership, because Michael had no agenda other than doing what was right, what was ethical, and what was in the best interests of our law firm. Michael was my first and frequently my only call on tough, sensitive questions. Michael loved Paul Weiss, and Paul Weiss loved him back even more. As I mentioned, I have been overwhelmed by the outpouring of grief by hundreds of members of the Paul Weiss community and the broader community. Every single one commented in some way on Michael's generosity, his empathy, his compassion, his commitment, and his love of family. Michael Gertzman was the very best person any one of us possibly could know. Kind and gentle, thoughtful and compassionate, brilliant beyond words, without even the slightest trace of arrogance or entitlement. Every single one of us would be a better person if we could be a little bit more like Michael Gertzman. Michael's legacy at Paul Weiss will be profound. It will be enduring. Michael's imprint on the members of the Paul Weiss community will be indelible. He impacted all of us, each of us, in deep and meaningful and pure ways. His connections were genuine and authentic because, as you've heard, he cared. He really, truly, genuinely, authentically cared. And we cared about Michael in return. None of us can ever be like Michael Gertzman. He was too good, too kind, too gentle, too humane. God broke that mold 60 years ago when Michael was created. But our law firm would be a better place. Our world would be a better place if each of us could strive to be a little bit more like Michael Gertzman. And if we all commit to doing just that, perhaps that would be the most fitting legacy to this beautiful, beloved soul. Michael touched all of us every day. We're all hurting so deeply right now. My heart, our hearts go out to Carol, to Nate, to Eve, to Joey. There will never be another Michael Gertzman. He was one of a kind. I loved him deeply. We all loved him deeply. He will be missed forever, but his legacy will certainly endure. And I know that Michael's memory will be a blessing for each and every one of us.
First of all, thank you all for being here. It's touching for me and for my entire family to see how many people were impacted by my dad and who are willing to offer their support for those that loved him. What do you say when your father dies suddenly 1 week before your 23rd birthday? What I first want to communicate to you all, as my uncle said, is that one night before he died, 12 hours before he was taken from us, my father sat for a Seder in his own home, surrounded by family. He sat with his wife, his brother and sister, 2 of his 3 children, and other friends and relatives, relishing in the community that he had built and continuing his parents' legacy, who equally valued their time with family. My dad had a unique way of showing his love and affection. His biggest fear was that he'd pry or interfere in our lives, preferring to check in on occasion with a phone call and allow us to go to him as we needed. The truth is, though, my dad was never a nuisance. I think a good way to describe our dynamic is the way the 2 of us tiptoed around the words, "I love you." It's not like we never told each other that. In fact, when reviewing old text messages between us yesterday, I saw that we had exchanged the phrase many times. It's more so that neither of us wanted to make the other uncomfortable. We both sought permission, and when it didn't come, we felt confident enough in our relationship to leave the love unsaid. The night before my dad died, we were having a conversation about a topic that we loved to hate together, Donald Trump. As we discussed that day's events of the criminal trial, we slowly drifted apart, preparing to say goodnight and get ready for what we both believed to be a typical morning the next day. I was halfway down the stairs, and at this point in the conversation, it was reaching its inevitable conclusion. I reached my hand out to initiate a fist bump, and he reciprocated. We looked at each other, paused, and muttered, "Good night, sleep well." In that pause, the love between us existed as profoundly as it ever could. No words would do justice to the bond between us as father and son. I felt my dad's love in his presence at my high school baseball games. in his check-in texts and visits to me at college, in articles and podcasts that he sent to me about topics that I cared for, and in our New York Giants viewing parties. And more than anything, I felt and witnessed his love in the way he tirelessly worked to provide for my family, to ensure that we could have all that we'd ever imagine, to ensure that we would have a strong education to formulate and advocate for our beliefs, and to ensure that we could pursue a life and career that would bring us meaning and fulfillment. Now, I know that unconditional love was there in our conversation the other night. My dad loved his wife and 3 children more than anything in the world. But all I want to do, and what I keep running over in my mind, is just say it. Just say those words. So I want you all to know, and my dad most importantly, that I felt his love and continue to. And I know that he was there for me no matter what. Back in December, the 5 of us, my dad, my mom, Nate, Eve, and I, were on vacation. And after an oddly intense dinner conversation about politics and issues plaguing the United States, my dad remarked something along the lines of, "It's so fun now that the 3 of you," meaning me, Eve, and Nate, "are real people. You're intelligent, you're opinionated, and you're able to speak about issues in our world." When I think back on this, I'm absolutely devastated. I was robbed of the time with my dad when I would have been a real person, when I would have entered into adulthood and crystallized my beliefs. I knew that our relationship was on the cusp of blossoming. The 2 of us both have changed and matured tremendously in the last couple of years, and it makes me sad that we can't continue to grow together. What I do know, though, is that even after the events of the last few days, my father will stay with me. A few years ago, my dad discovered he had a heart condition, and since the moment of discovery, he worked tirelessly to improve his mental and physical well-being. He began going on walks several times a week, first a mile or 2, and then up to 6 or 7 when he could spare the time. When I think about how I'm going to press forward without my dad, I'm struck with the image of him on a walk. Each morning, I will wake up just as he did and put one foot in front of the other. I will continue to rely on the picture-perfect model of stability that he offered me and my family and with which he built his career. I hope to walk as he did, with relentless determination, strong convictions, a firm sense of justice, belief in myself, mutual respect for others, empathy, and immense love for those closest to me. Thank you, Dad, for showing me the way. I love you.
My dad was a man of extremes. Nothing was done 50%, no half-hearted attempt, no partial execution, no gray areas. It was one end of the extreme or the other. When he graduated college, he graduated summa cum laude. When he graduated law school, he went to the most prestigious law firm in New York City, where he rose from associate to partner to co-chair of the litigation department to management committee. But it wasn't just in his career that he was extreme. His routines were extreme. He ate the same thing for dinner every night. He combed his hair the same way with the same comb every morning. He watched the same movies over and over and over again. When he could no longer go to his daily Tone House class, a boot camp workout designed for professional athletes, he walked 10 miles a day, every day, extreme. It might sound monotonous or repetitive or strange, but it was him. It was his way. He always did things his way. And he didn't feel ashamed or like he had to hide. He just was extreme. But that also meant that he was kind to the extreme. When he found someone's wallet in a taxi, he went through every possible length to get it back to her. When he tipped waiters and bellhops and Uber drivers, he gave them 50%. When he saw someone in need, he found a way to fill it, no matter what. But his kindness was quiet. His kindness was humble. He didn't need a thank you. He was just kind. And above all, he loved to the extreme. And there are 4 things he loved more than anything else: my mom, my brother Nate, my brother Joey, and me. Everything my dad did was for us. But again, he did it in his own way. And his way was to work as hard as he possibly could. He went beyond providing. He cared for us. He set us up. He thought one step ahead. He didn't want us to have to worry. He wanted us to live long, healthy, happy, free lives. That was his mission, and he fulfilled it to the extreme. I only really started to understand his way of love when I realized him and I are actually incredibly alike. When you look at me, you might think I'm a younger version of my mom. When you know me, you actually know I'm a younger version of my dad. I eat the same thing for lunch every day. I brush my hair the same way with the same brush every morning. I love routine. I am extreme. And I'm so proud of that. I'm so proud to be like my dad. In fact, many of the things I love most about myself are the things that make us most alike. It took me a long time to realize that, but I'm so glad I did. And I will strive to have his extreme kindness and his extreme love for the rest of my life. I keep thinking that if anyone would have been the most upset to learn that my dad died, it would have been my dad. He didn't want to die. He wanted to be here. He wanted to keep taking care of us. I keep thinking he's gonna walk out of the door and we're gonna say, "Dad, you won't believe what happened." And I can picture him totally pissed off that he's no longer here, physically able to take care of us. But he has already taken care of us, and he will continue to take care of us. Being born with Carol Balin and Michael Gertzman as my parents was the best thing that ever happened to me. I am incredibly lucky, and I'm incredibly sad. I can't believe my dad died, but I will find my way forward, my own way, just like my dad did. I love you, Dad. I hope to take care of my children as well as you took care of me. And I hope to love my children as much as you loved me.
The world was a safer place with my dad in it. His death on Wednesday is really going to change a lot for me. He was the kind of guy who, when he said he was going to do something, he did it. And often he knew to do it before even having to be asked. It would be impossible to talk about my dad without telling you about his relationship with my mom. My mom and my dad had the model relationship, not because everything was perfect all the time, but because of their devotion to one another. They met when they were 21 and 22 years old, and they were married for 35 years and 8 months. And what's so special about that marriage to me is how much my mom and my dad were committed to one another. And not just to one another, but also to us, to me, to Eve, and to Joey. And for that matter, as an adult, it's become quite apparent to me how much commitment and effort my dad gave to everything he did. He was not a man of half measures. When he decided he wanted to work out a bit more, he decided he would go to this place called Tone House. At this point, he was late 40s, maybe early 50s, I'm not sure. And I thought, well, he's 50, how hard could this be? Big mistake. I went to Tone House twice right around my freshman year of college, and remember, thought I was pretty fit. I wrestled, I played baseball, I was 18. I signed up for the standard hour-long class. I made it through about 10 minutes. My dad, at the spry young age of 50-something, made it through these disastrously painful hours 4 to 6 times per week, and even competed in a competition they put on one year. I had to sit on the floor of the bathroom with a towel over my face and try to keep myself from puking all over the place. My dad and the staff had to come check on me. I spoke with the owner of Tone House yesterday. I think he's here. And the whole staff loved him. My dad embodied the ideals of camaraderie, intensity, and kindness that these types of experiences bring out in us. He was a man of intensity in the way he worked and also in the way he relaxed. When my dad was in the 2nd grade, he decided he wanted to be a lawyer. And obviously, of course, he didn't become just any lawyer. He became the co-chair of litigation at Paul Weiss. As it's been talked about, and as we all know, he was really intense about work. Work was important to him, and he decided that was something he was going to excel at, and as was his way, he went and did it. But what's funny, and what many of you may not know, is that his intensity extended to the way he relaxed. Most of the time, when I went into the living room, my dad could be found on the couch in his Giants or Yankees pajama pants, just lounging around, maybe with a yogurt and cashews or some scrambled eggs with cheese, really an omelet with cheese if he was having an extra fun night. A few summers ago, I told my dad I wanted to come home and watch the Lord of the Rings movies with him. He loved the Lord of the Rings, he loved Star Wars, he loved Star Trek, very important. You all know the difference, of course. Trek is the guy with the ears, Wars is the one with the Force. And I'd never seen or read the Lord of the Rings, so I decided I'd read them. I think I wanted to connect with him, and I came home, and over one of the holidays, we watched all the Lord of the Rings movies together. We did that, and then the next summer, over July 4th for Father's Day, we decided we would get him a lightsaber. It was this glow-in-the-dark stick. It made lightsaber and Yoda sounds. And, you know, he was a serious guy, so he didn't really want to go around swinging swinging lightsabers. But we caught evidence of him having fun. I don't know if he'd want me to tell this story, but I am. My mom said it's okay. We went to the backyard with him, and there's this photo we have of him standing there with the lightsaber, just full of joy and goofiness. And my dad was also a man of intensity with his food. When he decided he wanted an ice cream sundae or a real heavy meal, watch out. Because getting between my dad and the freezer or the M&M cabinet or chicken veal or eggplant parm, was a bad idea. My dad loved to grill. He had a barbecue Bible, which someone pointed out yesterday is earmarked with Post-it notes the way you may expect a partner at Paul Weiss to do. He loved Ben & Jerry's ice cream, specifically mint chocolate cookie, among others. And the very last thing he and I ate together were a few scoops of Ample Hill's peppermint patty last week. The final thing I want to say is my dad was a man of evolution. You might think that as a Jewish man who grew up in Central Jersey as the son and daughter of Jewish immigrants from Eastern Europe, worked at the U.S. Attorney's Office, Harvard, Penn, partner at Paul Weiss, all that he would be fixed in his ways. He was born in 1963, and things have changed a lot since 1963. But, and especially over the last few years since I graduated college, I've seen my dad's opinions and beliefs evolve. I think he learned from his children. I think he learned from the people around him at work. I know he learned from my mom. And I think he learned from his friends. I saw him evolve always with the bedrock principles of empathy, kindness, mastery through devotion, and care for others guiding him. And now to close, I remember the speech my dad gave me at my bar mitzvah. He told me he wanted me to be successful, but then he defined successful. He defined success as being surrounded by love, being surrounded by people I love and who love me, and by finding meaning in the way I choose to spend my time. I think that mentality reflects strongly who my dad was. A lot changed for me, for all of us on Wednesday. He won't be at the big events going forward. At the races, the weddings, the Giants games, the Seders. But I'm grateful that I got the time I did. He is my role model. He embodied kindness, empathy, and commitment. He was a good, just, and righteous man. I know he loves me. I know he loved us. And I love him. I miss you, Dad.
The day Mike started kindergarten, Mike's mom, Gloria, wrote in his baby book, "Mike started kindergarten today. The kids love him. He's a born leader." And evidently in the second grade, Mike declared he wanted to be a lawyer. All those things became true. Mike became a lawyer. He was a born leader, and all the kids loved him. All the people here loved him. 60 years of achievement, dedication, leadership, and love. And on the morning of the second day of Pesach, he had his own exodus from this world. I know we all feel broken, like the middle matzah at the Seder. I know Pesach will never be the same again for you. The second day of Pesach is also the first day of the counting of the Omer. The daily counting from the second day of Pesach until Shavuot, 49 days, 7 weeks to go from freedom to revelation, to receive the Torah anew. So the day Mike died is also the day we start anticipating receiving the Torah. And while I know the counting will forever represent his absence, I know too that in his 60 years, Mike taught so much, and you will be forever receiving his Torah anew. In the specificity of each and every day that passes, and in the wholeness of how he lived. According to the Kabbalistic tradition, the first week of the Omer is dedicated to the attribute of chesed, of love, and the refinement of that attribute. So the day of his death was actually chesed shebechesed, the love in love. And yesterday, Carol, Nate, Eve, and Joey, in so many ways, you all said the same thing, and I think everyone here who spoke said the same thing today. And Nate, you said it specifically when you said, underneath, he was all love. He was the one when Carol went away to teach at a conference for the first time after having Eve. Mike encouraged her to go, and then he sent her flowers in her room from Nate and Eve. He cried at the movies. I can still see him and Carol and the family standing up in the balcony at the Shechianu for Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. I didn't see his tears up close, but they confirm. He wasn't a big swayer, but he was a crier. He was filled with kindness and empathy. He was the guy, as Eve said, who when he found a wallet or a phone in the cab, he went to the ends of the earth to find the woman to whom it belonged. Day one. Yesterday was Gvura shebechesed, the discipline in love, the strength in love. And Jerry, you said that he was the best big brother, and he always showed up, like in the hospital room when you had the surgery. He was the picture-perfect model of stability and security, or security blanket, as Brad said. He never missed a day of work. He had a strong sense of right or wrong, and he believed in the law to the nth degree. Love, as Gvura, is manifesting as drive, as an intensity and determination. He also had a strong sense of responsibility, but it all came from love, and he delivered it with integrity and conviction. That was day two. And today is Tiferet shebechesed. Some say beauty in love. Sometimes it's also understood as truth in love, and the balance between love and discipline. I knew Mike first as my professor's husband. Rabbi Carol, Dr. Carol Balin's husband. Carol was my teacher in school, now as my friend. And he was always the guy who was by her side, warm and generous, not a man of many words, but always standing strong. And I knew under that gentle, calm warmth was fire. But it wasn't a scary fire. It was a balanced fire, one that was strong and smart and dedicated with intensity, balancing out all that love in perfection. He said to Carol when they had an early conversation about who God is, that I think God is something on the inside. And what Carol and the kids said was that he really believed in humanity. He had a strong sense of love for humanity and commitment to who human beings should be. And he believed that also about his kids, Nate and Eve and Joey. He believed you should be who you are, who you should be, not who anyone else wanted you to be, not by anyone else's definition of success, but as Nate said, that definition of success that he taught you on your bar mitzvah. And he believed in you. He believed in you. And even though you're going to grow and blossom in ways that he didn't see, he knew you could. And he trusted you could be the blossoming person that he knew you could be. Carol said that Mike was going to retire someday, not too far away, and unfortunately that day will never come. But that he spoke about becoming a high school history teacher or a debate coach. Who retires from Paul Weiss and becomes a high school history teacher or a debate coach? Mike Gertzman. For his 60th birthday, Carol, you rented out a theater in Connecticut for just the 5 of you, because that's all Mike needed. He would say his world was divided into 4: Carol, Nate, Eve, and Joey. And they watched A Wonderful Life. He had a wonderful life. A wonderful life. Too short a life, but a wonderful life filled with love and learning and fire and passion and stability and enormous gift giving in all the ways he knew how, and he knew how. And he had so much Torah to teach, and he taught it. Jerry and Sharon, you were gifted with an amazing big brother, and I know his departure leaves a big hole in your heart, just like living in that room would be without him. Carol, you met him at the Lipstick Club. I don't know what that says about you. It was a UJA Federation event, so those 35 years of marriage, 37 years together, you were a pair in incredible ways. And you birthed this incredible set of kids. Nate, Eve, and Joey. You are an amazing world that Mike Gertzman privileged you to be. He never saw himself in those quarters of that 4, but he was at the essence. He was its crux. He was its anchor. He was its stability blanket. And he will always be that for you, even though he is not here. He gave you that security, and you will hold it true, even in the uncertainty. The tradition says in the psalm that Roli read at the beginning, particularly at this time, Limnot Yamenu Ken Hoda V'Naviv Levav Chochma. Teach us to count all our days, that we may obtain a wise heart. I know we will be counting the days of the Omer, waiting to receive the Torah, knowing that we are without Mike. But each and every day we will receive his Torah anew, the gifts that he gave, the love that he offered, the generosity of spirit, the dedication, stability, and strength. May we all acquire a levav chochmah, a wise heart, just like Michael Gertzman. Yehi zichrono livracha. Following the service today, we will make our way to Beth Olam Cemetery. The family will sit at their home. Just note that their home is in Brooklyn right now. 413 Sterling Place. They'll sit on Sunday from 12 to 5. The formal Shiva begins after the Chag. On Wednesday, May 1st, they'll sit from 12 to 3 and 5 to 9, as well as on Thursday, May 2nd, 12 to 3 and 5 to 9, with Minyan at 7 o'clock. And on Friday, May 3rd, from 12 to 3. The family will be setting something up in Mike's memory here at B'nai Jeshurun. We haven't figured that out yet, so if you would like to make a donation in Mike's memory, you can do so to BJ, B'nai Jeshurun, the synagogue, and as time goes on, we'll let you know where those funds will be directed. I'll ask you now to please rise.
אל מלא רחמים שוכן במרומים המצא מנוחה נכונה תחת כנפי השכינה במעלות קדושים וטהורים כזוהר הרקיע מזהירים את נשמת מאיר חיים בן אברהם אבא כהן וגיטל בלה שהלך לעולמו בגן עדן תהא מנוחתו ענה ועל הרחמים הסתירהו בסתר כנפיך לעולמים וצרור בצרור החיים את נשמתו אדוני הוא נחלתו וינוח בשלום על משכבו ונאמר אמן.
O God, exalted and full of compassion, grant perfect peace in your sheltering presence among the holy and pure to the soul of Michael Gertzman, who is gone to his eternal home. Master of mercy, we beseech you, remember all the worthy and righteous deeds that he performed in the land of the living. May his soul be bound up in the bond of life. God is his portion. May he rest in peace. And let us say, Amen. Now I'd like to invite Michael's first cousins, Michelle, Andrew, and Judy Clapper, to accompany his casket, as well as his brother-in-law, David DeFilu.